Dealing with the court system, a legal analysis of jurisdiction, commercial law, and civil procedure. 1. The commercial character of courts. Modern statutory courts operate as commercial venues rather than forums for adjudicating constitutional matters. These courts function akin to merchant banks. Their proceedings are governed not by traditional notions of justice or common law, but by commercial rules and statutory codes applicable only to legal entities, corporate fictions known as persons. Living individuals who enter such courts are treated as non-existent legal abstractions. In this framework, the living man or woman is deemed to lack standing, as only the artificial legal construct, the person, is recognized in the proceeding. 2. The presumption of jurisdiction and the appearance trap. Only the legal person, not the living being, is summoned to court. Thus, any physical presence by the living individual is interpreted as voluntary entry into commercial jurisdiction. Because statutory courts operate under military admiralty rules, they are considered zones of conflict. Entering without express objection to jurisdiction implies consent, thereby creating a binding contract of submission to the court's authority. In this sense, entry is deemed trespass into a military forum. The fiction of appearance presumes one is already under the court's jurisdiction, an assumption requiring immediate challenge to avoid default. 3. Admiralty jurisdiction and contractual submission. Once inside the statutory forum, the living party is presumed to have entered into a commercial agreement governed by Admiralty law. Such courts are commercial by nature, and one's unqualified interaction with the process is construed as acceptance of terms. No Article 3 constitutional courts currently function in ordinary criminal or civil matters. Therefore, by failing to object to jurisdiction and invoking the protections of the private domain, one becomes contractually bound to commercial adjudication. 4. The role of legal professionals and institutional actors. Attorneys are foreign agents licensed through the British Bar and operate as officers of the court, not as independent fiduciaries for the individual. Judges function as both arbiters and stakeholders, often acting on behalf of the plaintiff, which is usually the state. Bailiffs and law enforcement officers serve as commercial agents under international treaties and obligations to protect commerce, not individual rights. As such, their authority is administrative and not rooted in common law peacekeeping functions. 5. Commercial instruments and bond trading. Courts often convert legal matters into financial instruments. Charging instruments, indictments, citations, complaints, act as negotiable securities. Once signed or unchallenged, they form the basis for financial transactions between courts and institutional markets, involving bonds, sureties, and risk management contracts. These processes are frequently hidden from public view and are often conducted through court clerks who act as intermediaries in bond wagering across international markets. 6. Proper response: assert jurisdiction and refuse contract. To address this structure lawfully, one must immediately question subject matter jurisdiction. No court may proceed without establishing this on the record. Courts do not possess jurisdiction over living men and women unless consent is implied by contract, conduct, or silence. Therefore, all presentments must be treated as offers. Respond with a conditional acceptance based on full disclosure of jurisdiction, contract, and authority. Proper legal instruments must assert one's standing as a private entity and must avoid unintentionally submitting to commercial venue. 7. Jurisdictional challenge and peaceful honor. Remaining in honor and peace is essential. Acknowledge the court's presentment while conditionally accepting it pending validation of authority and jurisdiction. Do not volunteer information, and never appear in court as the named legal fiction. Instead, issue a rebuttal that maintains private status and denies corporate nexus. A living man or woman cannot contract with the court unless they first abandon their private rights. Stay in peace, act with knowledge, and never operate out of fear or ignorance.